when you look at, I think it's, to be fair, it's gone a bit quiet on the recruitment front, hasn't it? And Villa seem to be operating completely differently with this regime and sort of how they're going about the transfers. And realistically, if somebody's going to sign, we are not going to know until like the final hour, which kind of makes what we do a little bit difficult, Dan. But I know we did a midfield episode last week, Dan. We kind of spoke about Gallagher and Chamberlain. Gallagher's head's kind of reared again from Ashley Priest, which again, I don't really think you can take much of what he says in terms of transfers, too seriously. Ash is a great guy, but the Mail seem to miss the mark more than they hit it. With Douglas Luiz, again, and today, reports have been saying Douglas Luiz, his agents have been speaking with the people at Roma, talking about a 25 million euro deal. And there's been this debate: do you sell Douglas for 20 million pounds, essentially, and bring Gallagher in for this reported 30 mil? I don't know where I sit on that. I really like Gallagher, and again, you guys can watch the previous episode to kind of see where me and Dan sit on that. But I don't think that's good business at all.
It's one of those where all I'll say on that is that, like, Douglas Luiz is a player that if his head's turned and his heart isn't in it, I'd worry about. I think we've seen a little bit with Douglas that he's not necessarily the strongest willed and stuff like that. I think if he's happy and he's very secure and he feels in a comfortable place and he can enjoy his football, and I think if he does go to Roma, obviously he'll have Matic and the like sitting behind him and he can play a little bit higher, and I'm sure he'll find that. But if his head's turning and his heart isn't in it, and we want to try and put him in the middle of that part next season, that is something that perhaps I would worry about. And I didn't, I turned my sort of nose up at Gallagher, not because of the player he is. I think he's fantastic, but I just thought that Chelsea would demand a very high price for him. And £30, to be honest, I think is quite £30. That would be very respectable. 30 million pounds. 30 quid, yeah, I'll have him. 30 million quid, mate. I don't think that's bad. I really don't. I think coming from a big club like Chelsea, English tax, young kid and everything like that. If you're being totally honest, like it seems crazy that we're sort of looking at 30 million quid for a lad that's just come off a season on loan at Palace, and you think, oh, what a steal. But such is the market that we're in. And I do think that, if it was 25 million, you could let Luiz go for if his heart's not in it, he doesn't want to be there. And I think, look, like if you're him, you'd be desperate to go and play somewhere like that and play higher up the pitch and play somewhere where you've got that stability behind him. For too long, he's sort of been a scapegoat of Villa. He's been played out of position, and I'm sure he's been quite disgruntled at that at points. And you know what? If it's like you do that, and a guy like Gallagher comes in, who's a very different type of player, offers a bit more tenacity, which I think is the big box we have to tick in this midfield. Is I think we were too easy, too soft in that midfield. We've got to be hungry, we've got to be nastier, play with a little bit more energy, and I think Gallagher would bring you that. And if that comes at a £5 million loss, I don't think that's bad going.
What are you saying, Aaron?
Yeah, I kind of agree with Dan, to be fair. But I'm going to flip it completely on its head and say that it wouldn't surprise me if Dougie didn't leave at all this summer. I think you're right with being heads turning. I think that there's been a lot of talk about this contract that he should have been signing really last season and hasn't done so far. Lots of discussions, contracts on the table, but it's not being touched or looked at. But I think there are things in a personal sense for Dougie that keep him in the UK. This seemingly blossoming relationship with our female footballer, Alicia, whether she moves on, whether she stays put. He seems a very family man. And I know from his background, his culture, his upbringing, family's really important. Loved ones are really important. If Alicia doesn't move, I don't know whether he'd deal with being abroad and not being near her. I don't know. That'll be an interesting dynamic to see whether if he goes, she goes. Don't be surprised if he goes, she goes. And if he stays, she stays. It'll be interesting to see. But I think we'll see him in pre-season. I think we'll see Dougie involved in pre-season. And maybe then he can see that Gerrard plans to play him in this more upright position, this further up the field position, because we have the players in now, Kamara, to do that job that Dougie was asked to do on so many occasions and just didn't quite fulfill to the maximum. Because Dougie was great in that number 8 position in a few times.
Yeah,
so good.
No, he looked really good, and I would be really sad to see him go. I would. I think he's a I think he's a softie. There's this hard part of Dougie too, but I think he's a big softie, and I like him. I'm a fan of Dougie Luiz, and I'd like him to stay. But you know, if someone comes in and offers us 30, 25 mil, and it's Champions League football, and it's working with a coach like Mourinho, I think he goes. But I don't think it's as black and white as what we're seeing. I think there's more to it. You know, he could sign a contract next week, and then he stays for another 4 years, and it's all put to bed. So who knows? Who knows? But I like Dougie. I do like Dougie. And on Conor Gallagher, just for the shout, I'd love him at Villa, mate. Bloody love him. I think he's fantastic. I think he is hellish exciting, and I think he would come in and give Ramsey a good run for his money. And I think that's what Ramsey needs to be a better player. I'd love him at Villa, and he's English, you know, and he'll be an international, fully fledged international in 18 months' time for sure if he keeps going as he's going.